What if one of the most cheerful Christmas movies ever made hid two very different real-life stories behind its smiles and music? White Christmas has been watched for decades, often without people thinking much about the lives of the women who carried its heart. On screen, everything feels warm, safe, and full of joy. Off-screen, the reality was far more complex. One woman became tied to the film for the rest of her life, even as her career and personal struggles moved far beyond it. The other slowly stepped away from fame, choosing silence over applause. Their paths crossed at the height of Hollywood musicals, but they did not move in the same direction afterward. The contrast between their public image and private reality raises questions many viewers never think to ask. Stay tuned as we uncover the story of White Christmas through the lives of Vera Ellen and Rosemary Clooney.
It was funny because I had an absolute familial feeling for Vera because I understood that singing together, that working together. That was important. That worked for me.
I was just thinking, I was... Private Davis, sir.
Snow. 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 Snow.
White Christmas is more than a holiday movie for many people. It is a memory that returns every year, often at the same time as familiar songs, old decorations, and family habits. When people hear the opening notes of White Christmas, they often picture snow falling softly, warm lights, and a feeling of comfort that seems to come from another time. For Rosemary Clooney, White Christmas was not just a seasonal favorite on television. It was a defining part of her life, her career, and her public image. Looking back on the film, Clooney spoke with honesty about what it meant to her, how it was made, and why it stayed with audiences for so long. When White Christmas was released in 1954, Rosemary Clooney was already a well-known singer. Her voice was familiar on the radio, and her records sold well. Songs like Come On to My House had made her a household name. Even so, stepping into a major Hollywood musical alongside Bing Crosby and Danny Kaye was a different kind of challenge. Clooney later explained that she did not see herself as a movie star in the traditional sense. She saw herself as a singer who happened to be in films. That mindset shaped how she approached White Christmas and how she remembered it years later. Clooney often said that when she first took the role of Betty Haynes, she did not think the film would become such a long-lasting holiday classic. At the time, it was simply another job. Hollywood in the 1950s was producing musicals at a steady pace, and many of them were successful. White Christmas stood out because of its music, its cast, and its timing, but that was not fully clear while it was being made. Clooney remembered the production as professional and well-organized, but not overly emotional or dramatic. People came to work, learned their lines, sang their songs, and went home. The magic that audiences later felt was something that developed over time. One of the most important parts of White Christmas was its music. Irving Berlin's songs were already popular before the film was made. The title song, White Christmas, had been a massive hit for Bing Crosby years earlier. Clooney knew she was working with material that people already loved. That came with pressure, but it also gave her confidence. She trusted the songs. She trusted Berlin's writing. She believed that if she sang them honestly and clearly, they would work. Looking back, she often said that the music carried the film in a very natural way. Working with Bing Crosby was another major part of Clooney's experience. Crosby was already a legend by the time White Christmas was filmed. He was calm, experienced, and comfortable on set. Clooney described him as easy to work with and generous with younger performers. She did not feel intimidated by him, even though she respected his status. She later said that Crosby made things feel simple. He did not overcomplicate scenes or performances. He trusted his instincts, and that helped everyone else relax. Danny Kaye brought a different kind of energy to the film. His style was fast, physical, and playful. Clooney enjoyed watching him work, even when she was not in the scene. She spoke about how Kaye could switch quickly between comedy and sincerity, which helped balance the tone of the film. White Christmas needed humor, romance, and warmth, and Kaye played a big role in keeping that balance. Clooney felt that his presence kept the film from becoming too sentimental. Vera Ellen, who played Judy Haynes, also left a strong impression on Clooney. Vera Ellen was known for her dancing, and Clooney admired her discipline and skill. Clooney was open about the fact that dancing was not her strongest ability. She focused on singing and acting, while Vera Ellen handled the more demanding dance numbers. Clooney later said that this division of strengths worked well for the film. Each performer brought something different, and none of them tried to do everything. When Clooney spoke about filming White Christmas, she often mentioned the technical side of the production. The movie was filmed in VistaVision, which was a new and advanced format at the time. The colors were bright and clear, and the sets were designed to look rich and inviting. Clooney remembered being aware that the film looked different from others she had worked on. The costumes, especially, stood out. Edith Head's designs gave the characters a polished and timeless appearance. Clooney later said that when people think of White Christmas, they often remember the red dresses from the finale. She understood why. They were simple, bold, and easy to remember. Despite the polished look of the film, Clooney did not describe the set as glamorous in a personal sense. She talked about long hours, repeated takes, and the routine nature of studio work. She was young at the time, still learning how to handle fame and pressure. White Christmas was part of that learning process. It taught her how to work within the Hollywood system, while still being herself. She did not try to copy other actresses. She focused on being natural and direct, both in her singing and her acting. As the years passed, White Christmas took on a new life. It began airing regularly on television during the holiday season. New generations discovered it, often watching it with parents or grandparents who remembered seeing it in theaters. Clooney became aware that the film had grown beyond its original release. People associated her with Betty Haynes, even if they did not know much about her other work. Clooney had mixed feelings about this. She was grateful for the affection people showed, but she also wanted to be recognized for her full career. When Clooney spoke directly about White Christmas later in life, her tone was thoughtful and honest. She did not exaggerate its importance, but she did not dismiss it either. She acknowledged that it played a large role in shaping how people saw her. She understood that for many viewers, White Christmas was tied to personal memories. That made the film feel personal, even though it was a studio production made decades earlier. Clooney also reflected on the themes of the film. White Christmas is about friendship, loyalty, and doing the right thing without expecting a reward. These ideas are presented in a clear and accessible way. Clooney believed that this simplicity was part of the film's lasting appeal. The story does not rely on complex twists or heavy drama. It focuses on people helping one another and finding happiness through connection. Clooney felt that this message became more meaningful over time, especially as the world changed. Another aspect Clooney discussed was the pace of the film. White Christmas takes its time. Scenes are allowed to breathe. Songs are given space to develop. Clooney contrasted this with later films and television, which often move much faster. She thought that the slower pace helped viewers relax and settle into the story. It made the film feel like a break from everyday stress. That feeling, she believed, was especially welcome during the holiday season. Clooney's own life went through many changes after White Christmas. She faced personal struggles, career shifts, and periods away from the spotlight. Through all of this, White Christmas remained a constant reference point. People brought it up in interviews. Fans asked her about it at concerts. Clooney accepted this with grace. She understood that the film belonged to the audience as much as it belonged to her. Their connection to it was real, and she respected that. When Clooney sang songs from White Christmas later in her career, she approached them differently than she had in the film. Her voice changed with age, becoming deeper and more reflective. She did not try to recreate her younger sound. Instead, she focused on interpretation. She believed that songs should grow with the singer. Audiences responded to this honesty. They did not expect her to sound the same as she did in 1954. They wanted to feel the emotion behind the words. Clooney also spoke about how White Christmas fit into the larger history of Hollywood musicals. The film came at a time when studios were still investing heavily in big musical productions. Television was becoming more popular, and movies needed to offer something special to draw audiences. White Christmas did that through color, music, and star power. Clooney saw it as part of a transition period. It looked back to traditional musical styles while also using new technology. Over time, Clooney noticed that White Christmas became a reference point for other holiday films. Many later movies borrowed elements from it, whether directly or indirectly. The idea of a group coming together to save something meaningful, often through performance, became a familiar pattern. Clooney did not claim credit for this, but she recognized the influence. She saw White Christmas as part of a shared cultural language that filmmakers and audiences understood. One of the most personal things Clooney shared about White Christmas was how it connected her to her family. Her relatives watched the film every year, just like many other families. It became part of their holiday routine. Clooney found this both amusing and touching. Even though she had lived through the making of the film, she could still enjoy it as a viewer when watching with loved ones. That dual perspective gave her a unique relationship with the movie. Clooney was also aware of how the film presented an idealized version of America. White Christmas shows a world where problems are solved through kindness and cooperation. Clooney did not argue that this was realistic in every sense. She saw it more as an aspiration. The film offered a picture of how people might want things to be, especially during the holidays. Clooney believed there was value in that, as long as viewers understood it as a story rather than a complete reflection of reality. In interviews, Clooney often mentioned that she was surprised by how many young people loved White Christmas. She expected it to appeal mainly to those who remembered its original release. Instead, she found that teenagers and young adults discovered it and connected with it in their own way. She thought this might be because the film did not talk down to its audience. It treated its characters with respect and allowed emotions to feel genuine. Clooney also reflected on the role of women in the film. Betty and Judy Haynes are performers trying to build careers while also dealing with romance and loyalty. Clooney did not see Betty as passive. She saw her as practical and capable. Betty knows her worth and is willing to step back when she feels misunderstood, but she also stands up for herself. Clooney appreciated this aspect of the character and felt it made Betty relatable. As the years went on, White Christmas became tied closely to Clooney's public image, even as she explored other musical styles and collaborations. She worked with jazz musicians, recorded albums that focused on standards, and gained new recognition later in life. Through all of this, White Christmas remained part of how people introduced her. Clooney accepted this with perspective. She knew that not every artist gets to be part of something that lasts for decades. Vera Ellen's name is closely tied to White Christmas, even though her career and her life reached far beyond that single film. When audiences think of her, They often picture effortless movement, clean lines, and a kind of control that made difficult dance routines look easy. In White Christmas, she played Judy Haynes, the younger Haynes sister, and for many viewers, she became one of the most memorable parts of the film. Yet behind that polished image was a woman whose life took a very different direction once the spotlight faded. Vera Ellen was born Vera Ellen Westmeyer Roa in 1921. From a young age, she showed strong discipline and focus. She began dancing early and trained seriously, not casually. Dance was not a hobby for her. It was work, structure, and identity. By her teenage years, she was already performing professionally. She appeared on Broadway before she was even 20, which was not common at the time. These early years shaped how she approached her career. She learned precision, timing, and endurance long before Hollywood entered the picture. When Vera Ellen arrived in films, she was already an experienced performer. Hollywood musicals in the 1940s and early 1950s relied heavily on dancers who could deliver demanding routines under pressure. Vera Ellen fit that need exactly. She worked with some of the biggest names of the era, including Gene Kelly, Fred Astaire, and Donald O'Connor. These were performers known for high standards, and she held her own alongside them. Directors trusted her because she could learn choreography quickly and repeat it consistently. White Christmas, released in 1954, placed Vera Ellen in front of an even wider audience. In the film, her role as Judy Haynes required charm, warmth, and strong dance ability. While Rosemary Clooney carried much of the vocal work, Vera Ellen handled the most demanding dance sequences. This balance worked well. Judy was lively and confident, and Vera Ellen brought a sense of energy that helped keep the film moving. One detail that later became widely known is that Vera Ellen did not sing most of her songs in White Christmas. Her singing voice was dubbed by Trudy Stevens. This was not unusual in Hollywood at the time, especially in musicals where studios wanted a very specific sound. Vera Ellen never publicly complained about this. She understood the system and accepted it as part of the job. Her focus remained on dance, where she had full control over her performance. Physically, Vera Ellen stood out even among dancers. She had extremely slim proportions and long legs, which the camera emphasized. Costume designers often tailored outfits to highlight her movement rather than her figure alone. Over time, however, her thin appearance became a topic of concern and speculation. Some believed she struggled with eating issues, though she rarely spoke about her personal health in public. What is clear is that she maintained strict control over her body, likely tied to the demands of professional dance. After White Christmas, Vera Ellen continued working in film and television. But the landscape was changing. Big studio musicals became less common as tastes shifted. Television grew stronger, and the old studio system began to lose its grip. Vera Ellen appeared in several TV specials and variety shows, where her dance skills were still valued. Even so, the steady stream of high-profile roles slowed. By the late 1950s, Vera Ellen stepped away from regular screen work. Unlike some performers who publicly announced retirement, she simply became less visible. She did not chase new roles or try to reinvent herself in the public eye. This quiet withdrawal puzzled fans who expected her to remain active. At the time, stepping away without explanation often led to rumors, but Vera Ellen did not respond to them. Her personal life included marriages that did not last. She married Victor Rothschild in the mid-1940s, but the marriage ended in divorce. Later, she married Robert Hightower, a dancer, but that relationship also ended. These experiences were kept largely private. Vera Ellen did not share details in interviews, and she avoided turning her personal life into public discussion. As the years passed, Vera Ellen became increasingly reclusive. She chose a life away from Hollywood and public appearances. Unlike some of her contemporaries, she did not attend retrospectives or award ceremonies tied to classic films. She did not write a memoir. She did not give many interviews looking back on her career. This silence made her later years feel distant, especially to fans who remembered her so clearly on screen. One of the most difficult events in her life was the death of her only child, Victoria, who passed away at a young age due to sudden infant death syndrome. This loss deeply affected Vera Ellen. Those close to her believed it played a major role in her decision to withdraw from public life. After this tragedy, she became even more private, focusing on personal healing rather than career revival. In her final years, Vera Ellen lived quietly in California. She stayed out of the entertainment industry and did not seek attention. Former colleagues rarely spoke about seeing her, and even close fans had little information about her daily life. This was a sharp contrast to the bright, energetic image she left behind in films like White Christmas. Health issues also marked her later life. She reportedly struggled with arthritis, which made dancing impossible. For someone whose identity had been built around movement, this loss was significant. Dance had given structure to her life, and without it, she chose stillness rather than adaptation to another public role. Vera Ellen passed away in 1981 at the age of 60 due to ovarian cancer. Her death was quiet, much like her final years. There were no major public tributes at the time, and many fans only learned of her passing long after it happened. This absence of attention reflected the path she had chosen. If this story gave you a new way to look at White Christmas, let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more classic Hollywood stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.